Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Housing and Economic Development Committee. We will begin with the roll call, posting of the agenda, and the flag salute.
Member Flynn.
Here.
Member Lopez.
Here.
Chair Madrigal.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, January 21st.
Okay, please stand for the flag salute. Mayor, lead us in the pledge.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item B, public comments on items not on the agenda. And it looks like we do not have any. So continuing, item C, the consent agenda, the approval of minutes for the January 14th meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Though anyone disapprove? Nope. 3-0. Moving on to reports, we have the Community Development Department, subject formation of a property and business improvement district and Zocalo in South Oxnard.
Hello, I think this is my first time before this committee. How exciting. As your city manager, I just want to give a brief introduction. So this is a purely discussion item. So in the reports, it says this is to discuss the concept. And a couple of things I want to lay out. One is looking at this stretch of South Oxnard, there are very few areas where the city, actually, there are no areas where the city actually has, the local government can take the initiative in creating any physical changes. So we're dealing with a whole stretch here of private property. And that's why this idea is a very interesting one. And it's also a focus on coming up with an idea that has both the potential for economic development and community building. But again, I want to stress that this is a discussion item, it's a concept, and we wanted to get feedback before we actually continue down this path. And I think the staff report will be very clear, and then I'll be here for Q&A at the end. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Madrigal, Mayor Flynn, and Councilmember Lopez. So I'm here today, as the city manager said, to just present some information to you on the formation of a property and business improvement district, otherwise known as a Peabody, and a Zocalo in South Oxnard. So there's two main elements that this concept would require, both private and public investment. On the private side, the commercial property owners would need to establish a self-funded Peabody. Basically, that they would pool their resources and able to fund improvements in that commercial district. And then on the public side, the city would need to invest approximately $5 million to construct the Zocalo and some funding to form the Peabody as well. So as you may already know, a Peabody is an economic development tool. It's a tool that's frequently used to provide a mechanism for property owners to pool their resources and fund improvements. The Property and Business Improvement Law of 1994 is what gives the approval for cities to form these districts, where assessments are levied for the purpose of making improvements and promoting activities that will benefit the properties within that defined commercial district. The funds are typically utilized to maintain, develop, and market the district and provide supplemental services beyond that which the city provides. So many cities utilize Peabody as a tool for strengthening small business communities, attracting new businesses, and revitalizing older commercial corridors. Section 36601 of the California Streets and Highways Code discusses some of the benefits that are provided with the formation of Peabody's. One of them is a study that was performed by the RAND Corporation, which shows that having studied 30 different districts, there's a significant reduction in crime in those areas. It also creates jobs, attracts business, retains businesses that are already in the area. It stimulates economic growth, and it spurs economic investment. The area that we are potentially considering at this point is a 1.16-mile stretch on Saviors that would start at Elm Street and go down to Yucca Street. Both the City Council and the community have expressed an interest in focusing some revitalization efforts in South Oxnard. And so the city has begun this exploring the feasibility of this PBID by beginning to meet with some of the large property owners in the area. There's 3 main property owners in this area, the owners of the Centerpoint Mall, Island Plaza, and Ralph's. Mayor Flynn and Councilmember Lopez and our city manager have met with 3 of the largest property owners in that area, and they've already received a letter of support from the owner of the Centerpoint Mall on the formation of a PBID. The owner has also expressed an interest in updating his commercial area and shopping center, and then possibly operating a Zocalo in the center of it to provide a public civic gathering place. So you might be asking, why would we want to form a PBID in South Oxnard? The 4 primary objectives for forming a PBID in this particular area would be to promote beautification of the Saviors Corridor, to achieve a higher level of cleanliness, to provide a higher level of security, and to create and operate a Zocalo for the community. And so the process to form a PBID takes several steps. What's required by California state law, section 36600 of the Streets and Highways Code, the first step would be a petition phase. The formation committee would collect petitions and support from owners who represent more than 50% of the proposed total assessment that would be levied. The second step would be the ballot phase, which would be initiated by the city council, in which they would adopt a resolution of intent to form the PBID. This would authorize our city clerk to mail a ballot for the creation of the PBID to each property owner within the proposed district and set a date for a public hearing. The public hearing would then be held to count the ballots, and in order for the PBID to be formed, we would have to have a weighted majority as determined by the assessments that would be paid into the PBID, and they would have to favor the formation of the district. And at that point, the City Council could create the PBID by adopting a formal resolution. The PBID assessments are then collected by the County of Ventura through the property tax billing process. The county would then return the assessments to the city, who then remits them to the South Oxnard PBID, should one be formed. And then an annual report and fiscal review are required from the PBID. And this process could take anywhere from 9 to 13 months. Just as an estimate. And in case you're wondering what a Zocalo is, the original meaning of Zocalo was a pedestal or a stand, as you can see but the arrow pointing to. In the 1800s, a pedestal was set up in the center of the town square of Mexico City, and a statue was going to be placed on it to commemorate the revolution. The statue was never installed, but as time went on, people began referring to the entire square as Zocalo. And so now in many towns in Mexico, the community gathering space in the center of town is referred to as a Zocalo, or a plaza is another term for it. The Zocalo has come to represent an important gathering place for the community and is often used for festivals and cultural events. And here I just have some examples of some Zocalos that are located in Mexico in different cities. The most famous one is the one that's in Mexico City, as you can see in the bottom. And that particular one, as you can see, doesn't really have a lot of amenities. It's pretty much just a large town square. In others, though, you will find that there are a lot of trees, gardens, fountains, seating areas. And they're often used to celebrate cultural holidays. They're also a great place for selfie spots. And as you can see, a lot of the cities in Mexico have embraced that by putting colorful letters with the name of their cities including our sister city, which has one on the bottom right-hand corner that you can see. So as far as the Zócalo and where it would be located, as we mentioned in the report, it would be located in the Center Point Mall. And actually, I want to point out that there is one error on this slide that is a little misleading. When we discuss Prop 68 funds, those wouldn't not go towards funding the creation of the Peabody, but rather the creation of the Zócalo. As we mentioned, the owner of the Center Point Mall is supportive of allowing the city to create a Zócalo in the center of his property. He's even open to taking the roof off of the center and making it an open-air mall, as it was in the past. Before this could occur, though, we would have to form the Peabody. We would have a committee which consisted of city staff and property owners that would participate. There would, of course, be community outreach to get feedback from the community. And then the city would need to find the revenue to do this. First, revenue to create the Peabody, and then revenue to create the Zócalo. And that's where the Prop 68 funds could come in. The city could apply for grant funding. Prop 68 does itemize the creation of a Zócalo as one potential project. And so that would be something that we could pursue if we decided to go down this route. And once again, the main purpose of the Peabody would be to spur economic development and revitalization in South Oxnard, and then also to provide a gathering space for our residents in South Oxnard. South Oxnard is home to about 91,000 residents, and yet there is no civic gathering space in that area. So this would provide that. And this is right in line with several of our economic development strategy goals. It supports the quality of life strategy, which is to build relationships and create opportunities within the community for safe and vibrant neighborhoods. It also supports the following goals. The first goal being the improving community safety and quality of life through prevention, intervention, and suppression efforts that address crime and underlying issues. Goal 3, strengthening neighborhood development and connecting city, community, and culture. I think that you can see where this would really definitely move us forward in that area. Creating a renewed focus on establishing a positive outlook and orientation for our city and neighborhoods and overall community. It also improves our communication with residents, gives us a location to meet our residents. And then we could develop a policy of co-sponsoring events with certain criteria that would enable the city to encourage local community events. It also supports the existing economic development strategy, which is to develop and enhance our business climate and promote the city in a positive light and support economic growth. It creates a vibrant and sustainable commercial area and retail throughout the city, and it focuses available resources on promoting economic activity, which a lot of the funding often goes to marketing the Peabody, and so it promotes marketing for the commercial corridor that is along Saviors. It develops a strong citywide economy, increases our tax base, and creates employment opportunities, generating public revenue. It improves our relationship between the city and the business community. It allows us to capitalize on some of our cultural resources. And of course, we would also collaborate with public safety to help with the business community in promoting safety in an environment that supports economic development. It also enhances our business retention and attraction. And Goal 5, which is to revitalize South Oxnard's commercial corridor and pursue economic development opportunities. So our recommendation is just that the Housing and Economic Development Committee discuss this concept of forming a property and business improvement district and creating a Zócalo in South Oxnard. We'll open it up for discussion.
Oh, thank you very much. We have one speaker, Steve Nash.
Good afternoon, all. I am so in favor of this. I've heard some great ideas from our city manager and his team on things that we can do for South Oxnard. And first of all, it's way past time to unlock the passion and the power of South Oxnard. There is so much energy and so much art and so much, economic vitality that all we have to do is give them a little bit of seed money, and I'm convinced that it will take off. So I'm just, so in favor of this. I look at any expenditure of money in South Oxnard as sort of being a 10-bagger, meaning anything that we invest in there, we'll get a return of 10 times what we put down there. And I certainly consider, the Suckalo and other ideas I've heard as certainly fulfilling that paradigm. So again, I'm very grateful to the city manager and his staff for bringing this forward, and along with some of the other ideas. Oxnard Boulevard and Saviors Road it's the spine of Oxnard. So anything we can do to increase the vitality and the flexibility of that spine, because I'm convinced, again, that, we can bring people who may come to Oxnard only for the collection. I think we can bring them down to South Oxnard, especially with the restoration of the Ormond Beach and her wetlands. So, it all fits together, and if we can do something great here at the Centerpoint Mall, that's one more attraction. So, again, thanks to staff and our city manager, and I hope that you all offer these ideas with your full-hearted support. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to committee discussion. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Well, this is the first time that publicly the concept and idea has been presented, and I've really enjoyed working with the city manager and with the merchants, and especially Councilmember Lopez on this project. Let's just say it's one of the most innovative ideas that I've ever come across in my time in government. I think it's one of the most innovative ideas I've ever heard about for the city of Oxnard. So it's pretty obvious that I'm a very strong proponent of this. I think it's, I don't know what kind of words I could use, but it goes beyond being innovative. It goes beyond being visionary. It really serves, as the presentation shows, a variety of economic development objectives. The only aspect of this that I find challenging is how we pursue this is like an initiative, right? And not to be confused with, other initiatives that are floating around. But it's an initiative that requires ostensibly a public investment. And we're at a time period right now fiscally where we've had to make a lot of cuts. We've also cut back services that we're providing to the public. And we've been called to task, in particular in the governance and finance committee, about how can we, as an example, and I'm talking about how we've been called to task by some members of the public, how can we give raises to our employees when we're actually laying people off and or cutting back services? And we all know what the rationale for that is. So we don't have to go over that. But we are being very, very much challenged right now because we've cut back those services to the public. So my only question for the Economic Development Director is maybe, and again, this is all negotiated and it could be fleshed out, so I don't want to dive into the details because we're just talking about the concept right now. How would, this falls under the realm, as I understand it, as a public-private partnership, and I'll be very, very direct. In the past, here in the city of Oxnard, there have been a number of attempts at public-private partnerships that have turned out to be very, very controversial because the public has naturally very large expectations about what comes out of a public-private partnership. And I guess the concept here is there has to be enough in it for the private sector to want to be involved. And then there has to be, and we could call it skin in the game or whatever we want to call it, and then there has to be a lot in it for members of the public. And oftentimes people, unfortunately, in the city, and I don't know if councilmatic districts have helped this, but people can be very parochial. So there might be a public-private partnership that somebody perceives benefits one end of town and not another. And so those individuals that aren't part of the town would call into question, well, wait a minute, why shouldn't I invest my tax dollars into something that is not going to benefit me directly? I mean, this is the most common thing that we see of every public-private partnership suggestion. So I wanted just to ask how, without getting into the weeds here, how we would go about doing this. How would we go about structuring a public-private partnership?
I'm going to field that real quick because, again, we don't have the details at this point. Ultimately, so we do know because it's in the state budget for Prop 68. We do know California's already identified Zocolos as an eligible project. So we would definitely apply there. And ultimately, we're going to have to figure out a new revenue stream. And for a project like this, it would most likely be involved in some sort of construction bond.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
And then, I'd like to point out another item that we didn't have a chance to put into this report, though, which is if you look at this area here, hey, I got the spotlight back. Two things. So number one is creating the Zocalo in here would provide a civic amenity, a place for people to come and be, which is different from what mostly happens now, which is people drive up to any of these shops and markets, conduct their transactions, and either drive to the next one or go somewhere else. If you look at the density here of the housing, I mean, within just 5 blocks, there are lots of residences here. So we can have a civic feature here where people can actually walk for events here and not necessarily drive here and drive away. That's significant. And the other thing we would pursue with this overall project, in my imagination, is, and this we could also pursue through grant funding, is to get an electric bus that would have a route here of a continuous sort of like figure 8 loop. Well, I can't get this. That would just go from one end and just loop back and forth like continuous figure 8, and then just repeat and go back up so that there are regular intervals that people can catch a small bus to get here. That's also important. Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to also say one thing that I maybe missed, because I use very broad terms about it's innovative, it's visionary, and all of these other things. The thing I find most compelling about this is that there's been a lot of talk about, you know, if the downtown were redeveloped, which we're working on right now, but if the downtown were redeveloped, that there could be a theme. And that theme, it's been mentioned many times before, it could be something like an Olivera Street. So we've heard that concept. And then there are other themes that, you know, we hear about, just renaming the city using beach and in the name. And it goes on and on and on about this thing. So one of the things I find most compelling about this project is I don't, you know, when we see, can we just take a look at the pictures again, like in Mexico City, and you know, I mean, you know, I'm not an art critic, but and a cultural affairs expert, but I've done a lot of traveling. Unfortunately, I haven't done enough traveling in Mexico, and I haven't done enough traveling in other parts of the world, Latin America. But we'll get it back. Okay, but I think it's important I say what I say when we're looking at. Oops. There we go. So I just find this to be a cultural aesthetic. There are parts of Los Angeles that you can kind of find something that kind of comes close to this. I don't know if Olivera Street is fair to use, or in and around you know, the Mission, in particular, the Mission District, downtown Los Angeles, and places like that. even in San Francisco, parks that look somewhat like this. But it is from a cultural perspective and a culturally aesthetic perspective of high value. And it's something that if we think about the way that this area looks today, it is a commercial shopping center. There's nothing wrong with it. Actually, I think it's actually a rather well-kept shopping center, the Center Point Mall. It's I think, fairly nice, and there are a lot of buildings there, serving a variety of needs. But if we're looking at like enhancing the physical beauty of the city, if we're thinking to bring a cultural aesthetic that arguably doesn't exist anywhere in Ventura County to the city of Oxnard, I mean, this has really, really high value and a really high aesthetic value. But I just want to say to my distinguished colleagues that I think the devil will be in the details, and how this public-private partnership works is probably going to be one of the most challenging aspects of this whole concept.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lopez.
Great, thank you. I too am very excited to see this, come forward for the initial discussion, and to see the opportunities that we have to invest in a different part of our city, and this can also be an opportunity to really involve our residents in that area through that process. Once all those details, as our mayor has mentioned, have been cleared up of how this partnership is going to work, and how it's going to be funded, and to what level and what services, but it's an opportunity for our residents in South Oxnard, but especially for the business owners along Saviors, to really see their investment through, as there are concerns coming forward about people not feeling comfortable and safe maybe shopping in that area. So the security portion of this PBID, and the beautification and entertainment components, I think this is the kind of investment that South Oxnard has been waiting for, and I really look forward to seeing this through and what the next steps will be, so that this can go through and be made possible, and how we can really involve our community throughout this process. So thank you to all the staff for your work on this. I know it's been a lot of back and forth and good conversations with the commercial business owners, and seeing the potential that, based on the map that has been kind of determined of the current area, but to see the potential expansion even further south. So thank you.
Thank you very much. As far as this goes, being too many different towns in Mexico, they are all similarly shaped because they were shaped by the Spaniards. It is having a park, a church, and a pagoda in the center of the city, which that's pretty much what it is. And that's something that technically we even have in Oxnard, which is Plaza Park, or what it used to be. That's the center of town. That's where everyone meets. By doing this, I like it, but I do have a lot of different questions concerning this. Pardon me, sorry. The city destroyed Saviors Road about 20 years ago by banning cruising. It was very popular. If you go anywhere from Topper's Pizza on Saviors all the way to Bryce Canyon at the Carl's Jr. It attracted a large part of the younger population in the city. The city banned driving down that area, so everyone moved to the newly created In-N-Out at the Esplanade Mall, or at the Esplanade Shopping Center now, I'm sorry. So in a way, the city did this to itself by destroying people being on Saviors Road. Saviors was the place to be. I know because of recent events just this past weekend, but people remember driving up and down Saviors Road after the Lakers won the championship in 2000. That was the place to be. It was Saviors Road. There was no other place in the city to be but Saviors Road. Going to school at Channel Islands, big rivalry between the two South Oxnard schools, Channel Islands and Wainimi. I know that there is a sense of pride, but at the same time, many could argue, or many do argue that the city doesn't, give adequate attention to South Oxnard, but at the same time, a lot of residents do not send their kids to their South Oxnard schools. So at the same time, it's just not necessarily the city, it's the residents themselves that keep ignoring South Oxnard. I would love for this to be successful, but knowing a little bit about P-bids, I do know that, for example, you're going to have Island Plaza and the Centerpoint Mall that are pretty much going to be controlling votes, or am I mistaken? Is it going to be based off how much property you own in the P-bid?
Yeah, the initial vote has to do with weighted votes based on property, but once the P-bid's formed, the board isn't necessarily weighted by property sort of girth. It could be well distributed based on the way it's formed, and the board members would look to be representative of the whole boundary.
Okay. At the time, or by doing this, are we going to be taken away from Plaza Park? Because that's something that has to be taken into consideration, or are we going to move Plaza Park to be something else? Ultimately, what's going to be viewed, because, it might be sharing, but at the same time, it's going to be, by certain residents in the city, it's going to feel like exclusion.
I mean, our intent here is to be additive to what's happening in downtown. We've put a lot of energy in downtown in the last couple of years. This is an intention to spread that attention to South Oxnard, not to replace what's happening in downtown Oxnard. This is additive and we think complementary, because if you think of the way the city's set up, we have sort of this core of new development by the freeway, a direct access down Oxnard Boulevard to downtown, and the core that we were creating downtown, and then continuing down Saviors Road. I think it all works well together, and hopefully will support each other as opposed to being competitive.
No, yeah, I'm just, because like the mayor said, there's going to be a lot of little details here and there. Yep. And ultimately, something that we actually should take care into consideration is the entrance through the PCH, because that could actually really attract a whole new number of people into the city of Oxnard. If they're driving through and they see nothing but, fields, then, they pretty much drive through. So hopefully, this attracts, or this is successful. I want it to be successful. And I do know that most, if not all, residents are going to be happy about this, and hopefully it helps improve the business aspect of Saviors Road. Mary, anyone else?
No, I just want to thank the committee members for their positive input, and one of the things that is interesting about this too to talk about, and I won't talk about it much, but just to kind of clearly state, is that this is an attempt to take an area, to revitalize an area. Formerly, the redevelopment agencies would be involved in this kind of business, redeveloping an area. And when the redevelopment agency went away under Governor Brown, under the last governor or previous governor, it really left cities kind of strapped about how do you revitalize areas without a public investment or a key tool that facilitates this type of thing. So what this would be is, for the very first time outside of the redevelopment agency and maybe College Park was a public investment in a public facility. And what makes this particularly challenging is this is a public investment in what ostensibly might be a private facility. So that's where there's really a difference here, that one of the largest investments in South Oxnard have been the fire station number 8, the South Oxnard Library on Bard and Saviors, and then the College Park, as I mentioned. Now, however, we're looking at taking outside of the redevelopment agency or the former agency, in some form or fashion, public money, making a public investment that also has a lot of private benefits. So I find this innovative, challenging, interesting, and just will await eagerly to see how this transpires.
Okay, thank you very much. And it looks like this was only for discussion. So moving on to item E, items for future agendas. No? No? I guess committee has no items with that. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Very much.